After 65 days of 100-degree plus temperatures, it seems the fever has finally broken, and plants in the garden are responding to more normal, cooler weather. So now, my job is to decide which vegetables can be succession planted to deliver a quick crop while I transition into fall. The cowpeas have been consistent performers. They made it through the summer heat and should do well going into the fall, so I'm sticking with them. They're fast growers, so I've planted them in several spots, including the long beds, to help the soil and collect more peas that I plan to store like snap beans for the fall months. I needed to add more leaf mulch to each bed because while the weather has cooled off, it's still pretty warm. So all the beds need help with moisture retention. I started with the long beds as they get full sun most of the day. I thought it was interesting that before I started adding leaf mulch to the second bed, I noticed what I thought was part of a black plastic bag at the end of the bed. As I moved closer, I soon discovered it was a small snake. Snakes give me the creeps, but this guy is what's called a black racer that eats frogs and lizards. So I shooed him away and kept adding leaves. The leaf mulch has helped with moisture, but some plants, like these bell peppers, got sun scald. Now that we've settled into a less intense sun and almost daily afternoon rains, the plants are thriving. You can see the difference in the bell pepper, as it has begun to set a lot more flowers. I overwintered this plant last year, so I expect it to last through the fall, and then bring it inside to overwinter it again. And plants like the loofah that struggled before are beginning to grow and vine. I've succession planted more loofah that normally takes about 2 months to flower, so the combination of existing and new growth is a good balance for fall weather. I also added more leaf mulch to the cucumbers because cucumbers are mostly water, so they need moist soil. They're fast growers, so I've planted more in the bed and they've begun to sprout. Cucumbers generally come in a burst of fruit, so by planting extra, I expect to get enough in the next 2 months to store as pickles. 2 years ago, I stumbled onto flash collards, and they have not disappointed. They're a hybrid that is very slow to bolt, can tolerate heat, but can also withstand cold weather. I planted these over a year ago, and they made it through the hard freeze last winter. Needless to say, the leaves have begun to get bigger as the weather has cooled, and these should last well through the fall and possibly another year. The boxcar willy tomatoes made it through the heat of the summer, but like some of the other plants, had difficulty setting flowers. I've already succession planted a second round that is doing well, but I wanted to grow as many as possible to guarantee a good harvest to make salsa. I didn't want to start any more tomatoes from seeds, so I decided to cut off a few suckers and root them to get a jump start on growth. This should provide a good tomato harvest and lots of salsa for football season. This year's yard-long beans provided me a good introduction to the plant. And because of my longer growing season, I'm going for a fall crop. So I let a few of the beans remain on the vine a little longer to get seeds. I've already planted a few and they've begun to sprout. They generally go from seed to harvest in about 60 days. So this second round should work through the fall and allow me to freeze more for storage. The okra seeds my friend Liz sent me have performed much better than the original seeds I planted. They've produced lots of okra pods daily, and I've already planted a second round that have begun to come up. They should last through the warmer weather into the fall for some tasty gumbos. The same goes for a second go at growing Seminole pumpkins. Despite all the info saying they like sun, I've found they like a little shade or a less intense sun like the rays that come in the fall. They too are fast growers, with each plant producing about 8 to 10 pumpkins. I've planted 6 just to be on the safe side. These two can store well without much effort for almost a year. We'll see how that pans out. On another front, I've grown a few sterile lantana cuttings into the hanging beds that should respond well to the cooler temperatures and produce lots of flowers for the pollinators into the fall. And the thing about sterile lantana is it will survive through the cooler winter months and come back in the spring. So all I'll need to do is add a few zinnias or marigolds to fill out the flower beds. The chili peppers too had difficulty with the heat, but now have blooms and peppers. I'll let it grow through the fall to get chili peppers for my salsa and see if I can overwinter it like I did for the bell peppers last year. It would be nice to have it go through the fall, overwinter it, and then bring it back into the spring, ready to go for chili peppers. The sweet potatoes I expected to go into the fall as they take a while to make their tubers. I've set up 2 beds and the leaves have really begun to vine. The bed on the left was created from slips, and the bed on the right was from sweet potatoes planted directly into the ground. It should be interesting during harvesting to see which method produced the most sweet potatoes. The carrots did well over the summer, and I've just the spot in one of the beds to start a second round for the fall. I've never grown carrots before, and the type I selected takes about 70 days to harvest. That was part of the reason I decided to do a second round, to get as many as possible before the really cold weather in January. We shall see. While I was working on putting out the leaf mulch, I realized one of the long beds needed shoring up until I could replace the entire bed structure in the spring. It didn't take long to shovel out the dirt around the sides and then replace the rotted boards with new ones. Yes, it looks a little higgly-piggly, but I only needed something to last over the fall, and next spring I'll redo the entire bed. And talk about never giving up. After what seemed like a million attempts, I was finally able to get a mulberry plant to root. It's been growing pretty well, which really surprised me after so many attempts. I'll wait to see how much it grows through the fall, and once the cooler weather comes, I'll take it inside to let it go dormant until the spring. I'm just excited to finally have a mulberry tree. See you next time.